Sales can be one of the most lucrative careers out there today, and it depends on a number of factors like industry, what you're selling, and the company you work for. But the common thread here is that as a salesperson, you have a unique opportunity to add value to someone else by solving a problem and providing a solution. Now, while some people spend some time in sales and then move on to other roles or other careers, in this video, I'm going to answer the question of, is sales a good career? And what you need to consider if you're looking to go down this path. So stay tuned. Hey folks, Richard Walls here, and welcome to my channel where I help you with career development and personal finance. So if either of those two topics are of interest to you, do make sure to subscribe down below and hit the notification bell so you get notified of when I post new videos. So with that said, let's get to it. Now, growing up, for the longest time, I had always associated sales or salespeople with the typical used car salesman. Some of the words that come to mind are dishonest or sleazy or any number of really negative words that you can sort of conjure up. Now, obviously that's painting the profession with a really broad brush based on very limited experiences. But it wasn't until much later where I found myself in a sales role as a financial representative and then as someone selling IT. That's where I really began to understand what selling or sales is really all about and what it's supposed to be. Now, inevitably, there are going to be some bad apples that reflect poorly on the sales profession and leads to a lot of the stereotypes I mentioned a moment ago. But the good news is, generally, those salespeople don't last. They can't be successful long term. And that's because a great salesperson that is successful for the long term has a customer first or client first mentality. Everything you do as a salesperson, you do in service of the client to help them achieve their goals, and it could be financial goals or it can be helping them solve a problem with the right technology. And if you've ever been in sales and you were maybe at some point looking for motivation, you might have come across a gentleman by the name of Zig Ziglar. Bit of an odd name, but he has maybe one of the most shining personalities that I've seen of really anyone out there, but certainly for a motivational speaker. He spent his career as a business consultant, a salesperson, and then transitioned more into motivation. And I could probably do a whole entire video reciting some of his best quotes that I really like. But one that mattered to me the most when it came to sales and how it shaped my thinking goes a little bit like this: stop selling, start helping. Pretty simple. So the first reason you would want to be in sales, and if sales is right for you, is that you want to help people and you enjoy helping people. Like I alluded to earlier, salespeople are in a unique position to add value to not only the business that they represent, not only to themselves and their families, but also to the customer, which is most important. And they do this by carefully listening, asking questions, and understanding what the customer's challenges or goals are. And based on that, proposing the best solution that they can offer and educating the customer on how this solution can help them achieve those goals or help them solve those problems. Now, of course, e-commerce has displaced a good amount of sales activity that happens between people, and this is really in the business to consumer space. But there are still plenty of opportunities, and you may think of being a realtor. That's an opportunity that's a little bit more business to consumer, and you're working with people. But also in the business to business or B2B space, where maybe you are in some cases not so much a salesperson, but you're more of a solutions consultant. And of course you do sell a solution, but really you're acting in a consultative manner. Depending on the product or service that's needed from the customer, and depending on the complexity of their goals or challenges, it really is beneficial to have someone to work with. That's the kind of selling that's not easily relegated to the online space or digital space. So here you're working with other people for a long period of time. Which brings me to my second reason that sales might be right for you, is that you enjoy building relationships with people. Relationships are critical because if two people are going to be exchanging value, there has to be a level of trust. Think about the relationships that you might have with a financial advisor or with a realtor or with even a fitness trainer. There has to be a level of trust that gets built over time. And for someone in the business of selling, there has to be a level of trust that gets built. And when it comes to selling, it's 100% about being able to add value in such a way that everyone wins. And a few points about that to consider is that you earn trust by listening and understanding. You also earn trust by being an expert in your field. And so that's really where trust begins. But then the trust is built over time as you start developing a track record of adding consistent value to the client. And like in any other relationship, be it personal or professional, if you don't honor your commitments, if you fail to communicate, if you deliver a bad experience, be it a product or a service, then you can damage that relationship and it's not going to go well for any kind of long-term ambitions if you're in sales. So relationships and trust are something you have to be extremely conscious of if you're in sales. Third point to consider if you're wanting to go into sales, and I would say this is maybe one of the biggest points to make. To be in sales, you have to have a reasonably good level of risk tolerance. So this is a big one because sales can be one of the most lucrative careers out there, and in some cases, in some industries, you don't need a lot of formal education. But while there's potential for high reward, it's also quite risky. It's almost in some ways like being an entrepreneur. Now, every company is different with regards to compensation structure. Some have a baseline salary plus commission. Some are purely commission, which means if you don't sell, you don't get paid and you're not able to put food on the table. And while every company and industry has their variations on what this structure looks like, what I would say is that you should think of it as really owning your business. And the income you earn ends up being a reflection to some degree of your efforts and creativity. And I add in creativity because it's not always necessarily about how hard you work or how much time you put into it, as it is in some cases about working smart. Now, ideally, you could do both. You can work more, you can work harder, work longer, and still work smart. And of course, hopefully see and reap the rewards from that. But short of it is, if you're okay with the potential volatility in income, some months you'll have really fantastic selling months and other months are going to be quite poor, and you're okay with some of those variations and you're able to budget appropriately your personal finances, then sales would be a great career to consider. Now, whether you do sales as a career for the long term or not, I'd recommend everyone have a sales job at some point in your career. And in doing so, you learn so much about yourself, about your own psychology, about the customer, about people in general, and building relationships. It's such a great foundation of experience from which to launch your career into higher end sales positions or into other non-sales roles like I have done with product management. Folks, so I hope this video helps you decide a little better if sales is the right career for you. I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you around.